Hello, this is another video. I've just done one about how will it end. So this one's, I think, is more positive. And this one is, who am I without you? So this is quite funny. I would say, right, I live on my own and I work and I bring my own money in and I don't rely on anyone for an income. So I could say I am independent, and I could say I don't need anyone else because I don't really have many friends and I don't really bother with people very much. So I am independent. But is that ever true? Can you ever be totally independent? And I've spoken to a lot of people over the years and they've gone, yeah, of course you can. You just get in a van and you beggar off and you just go and do your own thing. But that's not independence. And they goes, what are you talking about? And I said, right, think about this, right. I have spoken to people also who've said stuff like, why should I have to work? It's all corrupt. The old system's corrupt. I shouldn't have to go to work 9 till 5 and blah blah. And you go, right, that's great. So why don't we all just pack us jobs in? Everyone. And they'll go, well, that's great, yeah, because then that's how we should be living. And you go, right, great. We're all packers jobs in today. So who's going to look after us? And they always go, what do you mean, who's going to look after us? I'm independent. And I go, well, you're not really. But I am, because I live in a van. Or I've got a living job and that, right? But who's going to look after your van? Are you a mechanic? Are you an engineer? Can you go and dig for the oil and go and get your own petrol from somewhere? Because all the petrol stations will be shut and everything else. So it triggers off a big thing for me, right? We can't survive without each other. So why are we hating on each other? Right? It doesn't make any sense. Look at the phone. Right? Look at that phone. That'll have a lithium battery in that. That's got child labour attached to that phone, right? So let's start from the field, right? So all these little children and adults are working, how many hours a day? Minimum 12 hours a day, killing themselves to get a battery for our phones. Then that lithium has got to be turned into the battery in a factory somewhere, so it's going to involve a lot of people to be stood on a production line making them. Then you've got the factory itself's got to be built for them to put the stuff in there, and the machines have got to be built to put in the factory. Everything revolves around people. You cannot live without other people. And then you get people go, well, what about that lady who lived on her own for donkey's years and never saw no one or did nothing? And you're like, well, right, but who built her house? Well, she might have built it. Well, if she built it herself, where did she get her materials from? And you've got to go right back down to the very basic stuff here. Bricks take a lot of labour because someone's got to go and collect the sand and the other stuff to make the bricks. Then they've got to be built up with cement and everything. So somebody's got to build the things and get the materials and dig for the materials or mine for them. You can't have nothing without anybody else. Nothing. Look around you now. Your clothes, your bobbles in your hair, your makeup, your curtains, everywhere you are, your furnishings, your homes. There isn't nothing that isn't built by another person. And when you think, right, I'll just take, well, let's just take the phone for an example. How many people were behind this phone? Not just the people who got the lithium batteries, but all the way up to the factory workers, to the truck drivers who took them around, to the shops that were built to put them in there, for the shopkeepers to sell them to you. Think about all the people behind everything we have. Even a piece of paper, everything. We're nothing without each other. I am nothing without you. And there are people who sat out there going, but I'm nobody, me. I'm nobody because all I do is, you know, I'm at home, I've got a disability. And you go, right, have you always been disabled? And they go, some people will say yeah. And you think, right, and so you're saying you don't contribute not to the world? And they go, well, what do you mean? You tell me what you do with your life. And some people have got no thought for themselves at all. And they go, I've never done no, I've never achieved nothing. And you go, have you ever made somebody smile? And they're like, what a stupid question is that? Have you ever said to someone, come in from the rain and have a cup of tea with me? Have you ever given someone some sage advice? Have you ever given someone your time? And most people will say, well, of course I have. And then I say, how can you say you're not nothing? Because you could have saved that person's life. And I'm going back to a time, we're going back many years ago now, and when I was young myself and I had young children, and I met a young girl and she was in an extremely abusive relationship, and we'd all understood what that was where I lived because it was rife. But this poor girl had absolutely no confidence and she couldn't even talk. So all she would do is just sit in my house in complete silence, and I'd just keep giving her cups of tea and cake and me and my other friend would just talk. And I remember going home one day and I sat with my other friend and I said, I feel right awful because she doesn't engage with us and she doesn't speak, and I feel horrible because it's like, what's she getting out of it? Do you know, I feel bad because I can't get her to open up. And then one day we never saw her again, and all we could do was surmise that they'd moved, and we didn't know. And it was years later she phoned me up on my house phone, and I'd moved by then, I had a different name, and she phoned me up and she said, do you remember me? And I'm like, yeah. And she said, it's taken me a long time to find you because you've changed your name. But I was still in the same location, but I'd moved address. And she said, it's taken me a long time to find you. And I went, I am so glad that you phoned me because I think about you a lot. And then I thought, hang on a minute, she's talking. And I started laughing and she said, I just want you and your other friend to know this. She said, I used to sit there in your house for hours at a time and all you did was talk. She said, do you know how much I got out of that? And I was laughing on the phone going, well, nothing, because... And she went, no, you don't understand. She said, all you two talked about was relationships and men and how you deserve better than the ones you'd had and you weren't putting up with it anymore and blah, blah, blah. She said, and it sunk into my head. And she said, you know, when I left there, she said, I actually did what you said you'd done, and I went to the police and I told them that I was frightened of my husband, and they put me in a women's refuge and then they rehoused me. And she said, do you want to know something? She said, I've never been so happy. And I started crying on the phone and I went, are you joking? And she said, no. And she said, it's thanks to you and the other girl because you helped me see that it wasn't just me. And there was another world out there, and I don't have to be in this horrible relationship anymore. And she said, I'm getting married and I'm marrying a lovely man. And I was really, oh gosh, oh my heart, and I'm like, oh God. But she said, that's because of you two, because you empowered me and you didn't even know you was doing it. And I thought it was amazing. But I didn't know I was helping her. I thought I didn't realise the impact it would have on her. But I never forgot that. And I've never forgotten the people who came to me when I was on my knees and I was having the worst time of thinking, I can't go another day. I just can't take one more day of this because I can't do this anymore. And there was always somebody came. And even once, there was one with two ladies. I won't say what the incident was because it was really horrible, but I never saw them after that. They sat with me for a few hours, and there were two women from the church, and they just sat with me for a few hours and they talked me through everything, and one of them gave me some really good advice and they walked away. And I never got the chance to say to them that they actually saved me that day, because they said something to me that I'd never even thought of. Now, they could have walked away and thought, did we even, get anywhere there? Was it worth doing and stuff like that? But they saved me. If they hadn't have been around at that time, I don't know what I'd have done. And it's happened a lot in my life. And sometimes you can sit there and feel crap about yourself and think, oh, who am I and what have I achieved? Look at me in my minimum wage job and living in a van, and you can put yourself down. But do you know something? You can be walking down the road and a total stranger's walking by with their head down, and you smile at them and they look, and then they realise you're smiling, they'll smile back. You might have just saved somebody's life doing that, you don't know. I haven't done it recently, but when I first came to Scotland, I came as a different person. It was like part of me just came out that I'd never had. And I think it's because I was in a new place and no one knew me. And I remember I used to go into the cafe in town, and there was always a lady sat on her own in the cafe, always. And every time I'd see them, I'd say, do you mind if I join you? And we'd end up having really good conversation. And I remember one lady saying to me, she said, do you know what, you've just made my day. And she said, I was sat here just having a nice cup of tea. She said, but I have just had the most lovely chat. And I said, you've just made mine. And she went, eh? I said, you have just made my day. Because for the same reason. And it's those little things that you take for granted, and you think, that doesn't really mean no, but it does mean something to someone. We are nothing without each other. We need each other. Every job out there, imagine, right, there are people who get up in the morning and go and work in a sewer and they go and do the most disgusting jobs that you would never choose to do. You'd be like, I'm not doing that. I'm not putting my health at risk, and I'm not smelling that or doing that. But there are people who do. And without them, we wouldn't have the luxury of flushing toilets and everything. Do you know what I mean? So, I am a real believer in that everybody has got something to give to this world, and we can all change it just by little acts of kindness and just little things. If somebody came on here, and I can see in people's faces when somebody's sad, when they're stressed, when they're unhappy, I can see it in their eyes. A lot of people put on a front and pretend they're okay, but you can see the minutes from breaking down. Just little things like just standing and having a little chat and saying, are you okay? And just giving somebody that little bit of time can make all the difference. So, back to these people who say, I am totally independent, I don't need no one. That is not true. We all need someone sometimes. If you get sick, you need a doctor. If you need to go somewhere, you need transport. Whether it's your own car, someone else has built that car, someone's maintaining that car. And there's somebody getting up in the morning at 4 o'clock in the morning and going to do a job that they don't particularly like, but it's keeping all the rest of us happy and alive. So we should respect each other as well. There's so many things you can think of, many things if you look right down at it, where you can say to yourself, how would I have got through that day if I'd have had no shelter, no food, no utilities, no clothes on my back? We wouldn't even make the day. So without us, we have nothing. And I'm sat here, and I know there's a lot of people better off than me, and there's millions of people worse off. So I am in the middle, if you like, but I am very lucky, and it's all perception. I feel rich because I'm not hungry, and I've got shelter and warmth and a car, and it doesn't matter if the car's 20 years old, it drives me where I want to go. I am a very lucky person. I am rich because I'm in the environment that I want to be in. I think I'm independent, but I'm not. I'm not independent because I still need other people's help with stuff. And there's no way I could build a caravan on my own or make my own wallpaper or anything. You know, think about every little thing you've got around you and how many people it took to do that. And then you look at the world a bit different and think, wow, you know, everybody contributes in some way or another to this world. So I don't think that any job is worthless or that any body is worthless, because everybody has got something about them, everyone. And I know that we've got this like hierarchy of jobs. Like if I said I'm a CEO of a company, most people would be impressed and go, oh wow, that's cool. But if I say I'm a cleaner and all I do all day is pick weeds, some people just go, oh, but why is one job less important than the other? You know, all these so-called minimum wage job, which are usually unskilled, who's to say that it's not a skill? Cleaning is a skill. If you've ever been in a hospital that is minging because they can't clean it properly, then you will soon what's the word I'm thinking of now? You will soon appreciate what cleanliness is if you go into one that has been cleaned properly. You know, little things like that. Every little thing I can think of has got someone behind it that may be doing something I don't want to do myself. You know, I don't want to work on a checkout personally because it's not my thing. But some people do it, and without them I won't be able to go and get my food from the supermarket, you know, unless I went shoplifting, which I don't do. But we've just got to look at all that and say to everybody, you're not nothing. You contribute something, even if it's kindness, even if it's just little random acts of kindness to somebody else, or it doesn't matter what it is. Your little jobs all matter. People on benefits still contribute in some respect to the community. You know, I know a lot of people who do volunteer work and stuff, they're still putting back into the community, so everyone matters. You know, single parents, oh well, it's just me on my own with my children, what am I? Well, you're raising people, you know, and you've brought children into the world and they're going to grow up to be adults, and you're behind that, so you matter. Everybody matters, you know. I just look at the world in a different way, and I don't put myself down anymore, because I used to put myself down a lot, thinking, who am I? All I do is a lot, but it's things that are not appreciated by other people, because they have to have a tag on the end of it, like, oh, that job gets me X amount of money, and I've got this much notoriety, or I've got all these skills. But everything's a skill. Getting through the day is a skill. You know, it's like, even washing up is a skill if you do it right. You know, everything matters. So I'm just waffling, but I do it all the time. But I have done a lot of volunteer work as a younger person. I don't do it now, but I used to do it a lot. And I'd be claiming benefits at the same time. And I remember people putting me down sometimes, like, oh, why don't you just get a job and just do something? And I'd be like, I am working. I'm looking after my children and yours as well, because we used to take them all on 6 weeks holidays on trips. So if my children wanted to go to the seaside, I had to take another 100 kids with me. So there was a small group of us all would take everybody else's children with us, so that our children could have a nice time. That is contributing, and it does matter. So don't ever think that. If you do think that you're really independent, get over that, because you're not. And don't think you're nothing either, because you are. Something to somebody somewhere. You have done something behind the scenes that some people might never know about. Like, who are all the faces behind that? We'll never know. You'll never know how many people contributed to that phone, and yet a lot of blood, sweat and tears went into that, and child labour. So we have to appreciate that there are people out there who virtually kill themselves for us, and so we should value everybody. So that's the end of that one today. Another waffle. But yes, who are we without each other? And the answer is nothing. Right, bye bye.